And welcome back to the program. Doug Miles, Don Henderson with you. And right now I want to get to our first guest on the show. We wanted to have him on last night, but we're happy to have him on tonight. You all know him from his work on TV, and he's got a great one-man show in tribute to his dad. It's called Twist of Lemmon. It's going to be performing over at the Sharon Morris Performing Arts Center up at the Villages, just a little bit up the road from us here in Sarasota, this weekend, September 4th, 5th, and 6th. And great pleasure to welcome Chris Lemmon to the show today with both Don Henderson and Doug Miles. Chris, good to talk with you. How are you?
Doug and Don, thanks so much for having me. I'm amazed you're still talking to me after snipping you last night.
Not a problem at all, because I just imagined, knowing your dad's affinity for golf, you were probably on the golf course practicing your game as he did.
I certainly did, but, being a Lemmon, both of us tended to injure as many spectators as possible unwittingly. But gosh, Don and Doug, I mean that was my those were some of my most favorite memories. Being that one decade I spent with him at Pebble Beach, it was just magical. He was so much fun, and we had such a ball together. And I try to reflect that in this wacky show I'm doing.
Well, I'm sure you do, and I'll tell you, when you talk about your dad at Pebble Beach, boy, oh boy, the stories and how many times he tried to make it to the home stretch and didn't quite get there.
35 years he tried. Can I do it in my father's voice?
Sure.
Can I do the entire play? Jesus Christ, 35 stinking years trying to make that freaking cut and not once. Oh, Jesus Christ. It's absolutely amazing.
I remember that great shot one year. I think he hit a ball down near the water, and I think Clint Eastwood and a couple other of his friends were kind of holding him by the arm so he could go down there and hit it without giving up a penalty shot. Remember that?
I actually quote that moment
in
the show. It's towards the end of the show, right after. Pop loved, he really always wanted to combine drama and comedy together, and I try to reflect that in this show. Very serious and poignant moments followed by big laughs. So you laugh and you cry at the same time. That was his motto. And coming out of a very serious moment at the very end of the show, right before I say goodbye, he has that moment where he hits his golf ball into a bush. And Clint Eastwood grabs me by the belt, and then Jake, my professional playing partner, Peter Jacobson, grabs Clint by the belt, and then Greg Norman, one of the greatest golfers in the world, grabs Jake by the belt, and then both caddies grab a hold of Greg so the whole damn package doesn't fall in the ocean. And he hits the ball. He hits the ball out of the bush into the fairway. Oh, the gallery goes insane. He steps back up to the ball. He takes a swing, hits it right back into the bush.
I didn't remember that video, but it was great.
The interesting thing about it was we were out there about a year ago, and when it was the Bing Crosby Classic, I mean, Classic.
That's where it started, yeah.
I mean, it was. I'm very, very sorry that they didn't continue the name and keep it going.
What can you say? I mean, it is what it is.
Right.
It's still one of the most wonderful moments in golf during the year. It's just magnificent in that it really exemplifies the pairing of really crappy actors at golf and really good professionals playing together, and how patient these professionals can be. And it's marvelous. It's unique, and Bing started it. AT&T carried it on. I guess it is what it is.
The old clam bake, right? Is that what they used to call it, the clam bake?
Yeah. Sure, of course. Yeah, that's a classic. Yeah, and the scramble, the fabulous scramble.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, the day before the big tournament, you've got 7 celebrities playing 6 holes. Each one gets knocked out, hole for hole, and last man standing is the winner. And I actually, my first year there, got the privilege, because I was doing a pretty hot series for Fox at the time, the then brand new network of Fox, called Duet,
right.
To play in the scramble. And I ended up facing my opponent on the 18th hole, another young maverick, by the name of Mark McGuire.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, I'm looking over at this human grizzly bear on the 18th tee, and my father comes sidling up to me and says, he's one big son of a bitch, isn't he? And I say, Pop, you're out of the tournament. Why are you trying to game me? He says, I'm not trying to game you. I'm just telling you he's one big son of a bitch. And then, unbelievably, McGuire takes a huge swing at the ball, hits it dead off the hosel, straight into the ocean.
Oh, my gosh.
My father turns to me, he says, you just won. This is a true story.
Let me ask you before we get
Hold on. Let me finish. True story. Equally unbelievably, the ball hits the only piece of rock jutting up out of the water and bounces right back into the fairway.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
My father turns to me and says, you just lost. The true story.
That was what I was going to ask you. Your dad had so many different facets. I mean, there weren't very many people in the screen industry that could do, the drama parts that he did, and also the comedy. But off the stage, when you were home, was he just a quiet guy, or was he really very much outgoing?
Well, it's a two-part question. First of all, your first point is exactly what it's really the core narrative of this story. The fact that he never came to terms with the fact that Hollywood had to pigeonhole their actors, especially back in that era. They still do.
Right.
And he always wanted to model his career after Jean-Louis Barbeau, the great French mime and director and actor who could make you laugh and break your heart at the same time, as I say throughout the narrative of this show. And that becomes really the core point of not only his career, not only him as a person, but really he and I as an actor. It's a really amazing core subject to approach, and it's made for a very interesting narrative in the film. And yes, off screen, he was truly a human leprechaun. He was just as delightful as what you see on screen. But you know what? He was even better off. He was so much fun to be with, and had such a great sense of humor, and he was such a gentleman, and he raised the bar wherever he went. And so I took it upon myself. If I was going to write this story about this great man, it had to have that. And that was my duty. And I really hope that I've fulfilled that duty. And I've been told by critics and audience alike, I've never been more proud of anything I've ever done as an artist. I'm most proud of my children and my beautiful wife and our home and family. And that's also one of the core points of this story. But I've never been more proud of this work. And, if they put me in a box tomorrow, at least I can point to this and say I did that.
Chris Lemmon joining us. You can see him with a Twist of Lemmon, tribute to his dad at the Sharon Morse Performing Arts Center up in the Villages. That's this weekend, the 4th, 5th, and 6th of September. And Chris, you and I were talking earlier today when we had you on another station here in town when the book came out. I didn't realize it was that long ago, 2006. But since you wrote that book, it was such a great book at the time. Obviously, the reaction from fans of your dad was great, but what kind of stories do you get from people coming up to you? You must get a lot.
It's interesting. This whole last 10 years, my God, it's been a decade, have been such a wonderful journey for me as an artist. I wrote the book, I published the book, and it just was so well received. And the subsequent book tour, people, would come up to me and with tears in their eyes and say, "You've changed my life." And so I thought, well, gosh, I don't want to just leave it at that and go on to another project. I'd really like to continue this journey. And it turned into a performance piece. It turned into this piece of theater when I finally realized instead of telling it in my voice, as I did in the memoir, I should actually just tell it as my father. You need to see Jack on stage. So I become him, and I do the entire play as him. I channel him, so to speak. But it's still touching people. Let me tell you a quick story. I'm 11. We do a half hour on Hello, so I'll do this as quickly as I can.
All right, plenty of time.
There was one of the critics. Yeah, well, one of the critics that when I was really still trying to find my way, I was playing the Royal George Theater in Chicago, and and one of the critics, the reviewers, I should say, and we just had such wonderful reviews too. So thank you to all of you out there. He came to me and he said, I'm estranged from my father, and I see your message that don't let these people go because you don't know what you got until it's gone. And if I lose him, I never went to him and tried to fix things up, and I'm going to go to him. He lives in Orlando, and I'm going down there, and I'm going to go to him. I'm going to see if we can patch things up. And I thought, just then, oh my God, I was able to make that happen. What a wonderful tribute, to my message. Sure enough, about a month and a half ago, I was playing Mount Dora down near Orlando, Florida, and he's there. And he walks up to me with tears in his eyes, and he hugs me, and he says, I came down here after I told you that in Chicago a year ago, and I found my father, and we requited our relationship. And, and I'm living down here now, and we're the best of friends.
Wow.
To be able to hear that, my father always said to me, if you can touch just one person, you've done your job. And to be able to have that happen because of my humble message, oh, my Lord, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. What made you make the transition out of Hollywood to Connecticut? Because it doesn't seem like Connecticut would be a great demand to look for somebody to come into the movies.
Well, you know what? I'm looking at her right now. I'm sitting in our neighbor's office, and we're having dinner over here, and I'm looking at my dear wife, Gina Raymond, who is one of the most incredible people I've ever known. We've been married, unlike my father, who had 2 marriages, my mother, who had 3. Oh, my Lord. I've been married to her for 28 years, and she's from Glastonbury, Connecticut, and here we are in Glastonbury, Connecticut right now, having dinner with our dear next-door neighbors, and we have 3 kids. All 3 are in college at the same time, may I add. This show had better be a hit.
That's why you're working.
And you know what? I say if they put me in a box tomorrow, I can point at this and say I did this as an artist. But really, truly, the most important thing is I did that as a father. And
well, you better live a long life if you have 3 in college, because by the time you get finished paying for those kids,
exactly,
you'll be 103.
But that's the reason I moved to Connecticut.
You mentioned the different types of roles that your dad played. Even in comedy, you go back to Some Like It Hot. Is it one type of comedy? Then he plays Felix Unger later on, a different type of comedy, and then the great dramatic parts that he played as well. I mean, not too many actors even today can match up to that, but I guess he's one of the first that can really do both.
Well, you know what? That's what I do in the show. Not only is it this deeply tragic but universal father-son story couched in the golden lure of Hollywood. So it's got all this wonderful, fluffy, fun, marvelous Age of Camelot, Age of Innocence stuff going on, and great stories, fun stories, laugh out loud, then cry, just like Jean-Louis Barrault said. But it's also got all of that, that father-son depth that goes on. What was the question? Wait, I'm being a lemon. I'm transgressing. What was the question you just said to me?
No, I'm just saying that just the range of roles between different types of comedy,
yes.
and then the dramatic,
right.
like Days of Wine and Roses. There's no 2 different. That's 2 spectrums right there, 2 ends of the spectrum.
It was important for me because there's a lot of people out there who've forgotten Jack Lemmon. Unfortunate, but true. So I do them all. I reenact. Oh God, a dozen of those scenes. As a matter of fact, I do the end of Some Like It Hot with Pop. I do Pop and Joey Brown.
Oh, great.
It's oh God, I'm a man. Well, nobody's perfect. I do The Apartment. I do Days of Wine and Roses. Missing, the whole 9 yards, because I have to. It's my duty. If I'm going to do a show that involves Jack Lemmon, I got to show him what Jack Lemmon did. And
I'll tell you, I have a hard time watching Days of Wine and Roses. He was great. No question about it. It's a great, great movie. But boy, oh boy, it makes you think.
Well, it's wonderful because I have to tell you, as the narrator again, I have to tell you why that was such an important film, because my father was an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. and a self-admitted alcoholic. He actually did it on the air when it was tantamount to career suicide. It wasn't fashionable back then by any means, and he did it right in front of James Lipton on the Actors Studio, and you could see Lipton collecting his chin off the floor when my father did it, and he did it again because if you can help one person, then you've done your job. And so when I reenact the famous scene from Days of Wine and Roses, look at us, we're a couple of bums, I then go on to say, and I looked at myself one morning in the mirror and realized, who is that bum? And I saw it was me, because he realized he was an alcoholic. And in a very large scene at the end, I come to terms, as Jack, come to terms with myself one night where I have a falling out and the whole house is wrecked. And Chris, his son, shows up at the door because the maid called me and said, "You need to get over here." And he comes down the stairs, and his admission of his alcoholism was so gallant. He was so brave and so courageous and so selfless in doing it. I hope that what the audience comes away with, and I've been told that they do, is that this was not a man who was an alcoholic. This was a man who made a choice in his life, who realized we're all fallible. We all have faults. We're all human. And he chose to do something about something that he didn't feel good about. That affected us both.
Was he able to, at the end of his life, to shake it as much as he could? I know he never cured of it, but was he able to come back?
As I say in the play, as Jack, as I say in the play, and that was it. I never looked back. Haven't had a drink since, not one. And I stand testament to that as the truth.
Yeah. Don?
Well, he certainly transformed that into
brave
a
and
great, I'll tell you that.
A class act. He was a class act.
Well, Chris, again, you can see Chris Lemmon's show at the Villages. It's at the Sharon Morse Theater. And as I told you before, Chris was up there a month or two ago to see another woman who's kind of doing a tribute to her dad, Dean Martin. Dina Martin doing her show there. So
such a doll. Yeah,
I'll pass on your regards to her. Let her know we talked to you.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Doug. Thanks, Don. I hope to see you guys up there.
Well, I hope we do, and I want to just reiterate what Doug said. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Very, very enjoyable, and I hope I get to see you on stage myself.
Oh, well, hell, I'm amazed you're still talking to me after I stood you up last night.
You more than made up for it. Just leave us some tickets.
I've had a lot of girls that did that.
Well, I tell you what, come on up and dinner on me after.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Terrific, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Chris Lemmon joining us on the program. And Don, glad we had a chance to talk with him because it's this weekend, and we want to get. We're going to definitely want to go see that show because I want to hear him do Jack Lemmon.
You just want dinner.
Oh, you're still there? Oh. We thought you left.
He said he's 11. They keep going.
That's where you bet, baby. I haven't done my bows yet.
Go back to dinner with your wife. She's waiting for you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank your neighbors for letting us interrupt your dinner.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Take care.
Very good.